welcome to this week's author vlog. I'm Beatrice B. Morgan, fantasy author. Mostly fantasy author. I am dabbling in horror right now, but I'm hesitating calling myself a horror author because I feel like there's a lot of connotations with that I'm unprepared for. I'm dabbling in contemporary horror. Let's just leave it at that. When I figure out what I'm doing with this novel, self-publishing, attempting traditional publishing, well, that's a different blog. That's further down the road. I still have another revision to go. But for this vlog, I wanted to talk about outlining versus pantsing, also known as discovery writing, as I've been told. What does that mean? Are you a pantser? Are you an outliner? So when I started out writing 10 years ago in the yonder year of 2016, well, granted, no, I published my first book in 2016. I was writing fan fiction probably a decade before that. My writing process when I was doing like fan fiction, I was running with an idea. Like I would have an idea for a premise, and then I would take that premise, write a first chapter, and if I liked it, I would just run with it. I would just throw that first chapter up on fanfiction.net and see if there was any traction. Usually, like for my first several, I would just write because I wanted to write and it was just fun. And I never got massively popular, thank goodness. But the way I wrote is I would have a very vague idea of where the story was going. And like of course when you're doing fan fiction, you have all these building blocks to work with. And it's a different mindset of going from fan fiction and like writing your own thing. But I would have a very general idea of like the next chapter or the next few chapters or what the next few chapters were going to work toward if there was like a big plot point coming. And I would kind of have an idea of where I was going, but in general, I was pantsing every single one of those fan fictions that I wrote. I was discovering the plot as I went. Or really, I had a very vague notion of what the plot was and where it was going, and then I would kind of discover that plot along the way. I wasn't like outlining hardcore. I didn't have those skills yet. And I hesitate to say that I have those skills now. And for my first novel that I wrote it really in that same fashion. I was starting with a character, I had a vague idea of the world, I kind of knew what the plot was, but I was just discovering the plot as I was going. And I don't know what novel it was that I suddenly decided I was gonna outline. Because when I started it on Stars and Bones, I had kind of the same vague idea of like the outline of the first book. But then that outline that I thought was going to be the first book ended up being the first book and the first half of the second book. And then some of the ideas for scenes that I had ended up being in later books entirely. So I wasn't really outlining. I was very much pantsing a lot of those novels, and then I would come back in later drafts and try to straighten it all up. Which is why I think Stars and Bones 1, Thief in the Castle, went through, I want to say like 10 drafts. One of those drafts was entirely focused on the magic system because I wrote book 1, started immediately on book 2, and then realized that I had changed the magic rules in book 2, and then I was like, oh no, I have to go back. I did. And that is when I learned the lesson of write the rules when you make them. Have a story Bible, and when you make rules for your world, you write those down. So you don't forget it and then break it in book 2, like I tried to do. And as I went further into Stars and Bones, I outlined a little bit more, or I had more of an idea of where it was going and how I was going to get there. Because that is where I struggle, I think, as a writer. When I know where I want to go, or I have an idea of where I want to go, and I have no idea how to get there. That's when I've got to walk away. Like, I don't know how to get these characters from point A to point B so that they can get to point C. I don't know what point B is yet. But I will. I just got to think about it. Got to let it stew. Hard as Stone was a different experience. I I have never done this since. This is the only novel I have ever done this on. But I had the idea for the main character. I had an idea for the love interest. I had kind of this vague idea of like how they would slowly kind of fall in love over the course of the book. And I wrote out the key points in the book one. And then I wrote this book around those scenes. I stitched them together in a way that made sense, and it was really weird because it all made sense. And again, I've never done that since. No other book has come to me in that manner. And I have, between like Stars and Bones and Heart of Stone and book I'm working on right now, I have written considerable books, a considerable number of books, I should say. Not that any of my books are considerable, but I've written a lot of stuff. A lot of it is just sitting on my computer, and I don't know at what point I became an outliner, but I discovered at some point, kind of just over the course of writing all of these books, most of which have not seen the light of day, that it is easier for me to have a general outline than it is for me to just go. That does not mean there are not exceptions. For example, there is the first book in a series or a duology. I don't know yet because it's kind of in rough draft form. I had an idea for a scene, for an opening scene between the two main characters, and I wrote that first scene. And over the course of, I think, a weekend, like one of those 40 weekends I had, I wrote the first rough draft, which is kind of rough drafty, outliney, of a book, an entire book, like 70,000 words of a book. And I remember sitting there at the end going, where did this come from? That book is still sitting on my computer. I've since done another revision and I really like it. And I have found myself thinking about that book when I'm trying to work on book 5 right now of another high fantasy series. Right now, for me, in 2026, I need an outline. Like, I don't write down all of my ideas. I let them sit in my brain. I let them stew until they are a good idea. How do you know the difference between a good idea and a bad idea? I don't know. I have no idea. I have no answer for that because I don't know. All I know is I need to leave my ideas up here, let them cook, let them stew, let them simmer until I have what I need in order to take that idea and put it into book form. And for me, personally, authors are different. Every author could be different. I need one, the main character. I need to know, who they are, whether it's more like an archetype that I will fluff out as I go. I need to know what they're all about. I need to know like where they come from, what their goal is, what their personality is. Again, even if it's like a archetype that I'm working with, I need to know who they are. What do they want? And how does that tie into like the story that they're about to step into? I also need to know who like the side characters are, like if there is a love interest, if I know who that love interest is, I need to know who they are, how they're going to butt heads with the main character. I need to know roughly what the world setting is, if there's magic, what kind of magic, how does it work, who has it, is it something you can obtain, or are you born with it? Uh, how does the world feel about magic? Is it like one of those things where it's frowned upon? Is it glorified? I need to know these things. I need to know these things now. When I was working on Stars and Bones, I did not. I just started with a very, very vague, stereotypical European medieval fantasy world. When I started in on this current series that I'm working on, The Witch Queen is what we're calling the overall series title. I sat down and I was like, well, I need to know how magic works in this world before I ever start the first draft. I need to know because I'm not pulling another Stars and Bones where I get halfway through book 2 and realize I don't have any magic rules. So I sat down and I was like, how does magic work in this world? Who has magic? How many people have magic out of the population? And whereas Stars and Bones, magic was a lot more popular. No, it's not. It was more common versus in the Witch Queen series, I wanted it to be less common. I wanted magic to be a rare talent. Like if you were born with magic, that is a something. So I made it a lot more rare and special. I also wanted to step away from the chosen one kind of thing where like the main character is the main character because she's the main character. No, I didn't want that to be a thing. So like with my main character, Asha in the Witch Queen series, I wanted her to be the main character because of her actions. She gets mistaken for the princess during a coup, and then she kind of lets everyone believe that, so then she is kind of in the middle of this loyalist situation. The whole kind of the premise of her story is like a false identity. Like she's pretending to be somebody else. And a lot of like the her plans hinge on everyone believing that she is this person, which apparently that's a trope that I really like because I also did that in Stars and Bones. I also pulled that off in Heart of Stone also because there was a moment where like Raven pretends to be someone she's not. I'm discovering this about myself in real time. Where was I going? I had a thought. And it has just. We're talking about discovery writing versus outlining, and how I started out as an outliner, discovery writer. And then I have slowly kind of molded into an outliner, and yet somehow I still pants entire first drafts. Like, there's no. Every novel that I have written has come about in a different way. And it's so weird and crazy to sit here and think about, like, well, I drew the map of this novel first, and then the story kind of unfolded after that. You haven't seen that novel either. No one has. It's also unpublished. It's part of a trilogy, and I have a very vague notion of what I want to do with book 2 and 3, but I just haven't done it yet. Other projects have caught my attention and kind of sucked me in. I will one day finish that series. Like, I need to just sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to finish this series now. Kind of like I did with the Witch Queen series. Book 1 has been sitting on my computer since like 2019 is when I think I started working on it. And it's just, I've jumped back in periodically, but then other things have caught my attention. And then I sat down here last year, September, October-ish, August maybe, and I was like, this is my next series. I'm going to finish these novels, get it off my computer. And I did. Well, I am. I'm in the process. I am on the third act of book 5, which is the final book. And we're going to do a rapid release, but then I'm going to have to just do that with that other book that doesn't have a title. What has one, but it's kind of a lame title. It's very stereotypical of fantasy right now. So I'm going to have to think of a new title. Which is fine. I'm terrible at titles. That's like the one thing that I am just horrible at. Like, I didn't think of the Witch Queen until halfway through book 5. But I don't think there is a better way. Like, there's not one way to write a book. There's not one way to come up with an outline. There's not one way to write a novel, or discover a novel, or pants a novel, whatever you want to call it. Like, every author does things differently. And, like, for me, every book has come about differently. Sometimes it's I have an opening scene in my mind, and then the rest of the novel just kind of poops out. Or I have a map, and then, like, I kind of build the story around that map. Or with Stars and Bones, it was a premise of, like, Juniper sneaking into the castle, thinking it's going well, and then getting captured, and be like, no, you're gonna work for the crown now and doing this. Like, I discovered a lot of that novel just because I was just obsessed with that premise, and I was just in that high fantasy, romantic fantasy fever dream, and it just kind of, there it is. I have a gender bent Aladdin retelling, and I say retelling very loosely. That one came about from a challenge to myself, because there was all these retellings of like Cinderella and Snow White, and I was like, you know what? Aladdin was my favorite Disney movie. How about I write a retelling of Aladdin? So I challenged myself. And then Reaper was born. No one has seen that one. I tried using it on that Kindle Vella and it never went anywhere because I thought just the broken system. I don't remember writing. I don't remember writing that novel because that one also is old. Like, it's been sitting on my computer. 5 years maybe. And I don't know what to do with it. I just had a thought that maybe I could use that gender bent Aladdin retelling as like a freebie gift. Like, send it to my newsletter. You can have this free book. Because it's one of those, like, I don't hate it, but I have so many other things that I want to move on to use, like, the skills that I've cultivated over the past 10 years to get started on, and I don't want to spend tremendous amount of time trying to rework things I've already written and revised and drafted a dozen times. Because, like, Reaper, the Aladdin retelling, it has gone through, I don't even know how many, like, drafts and revisions, enough that I am kind of sick of it and I don't want to go back to it. Oh, see, this is why I need a script, because I have just gone off the rails on, like, side tangents. And this whole thing was, my purpose was talking about outlining versus discovery writing. And I have done very little of that. This is what my blogs are like. This is why I can't have anybody else edit these. I need to edit these. I need to edit my own nonsense. But again, I just want to reiterate that there's no one right way to write a book. Like, if you are a meticulous outliner, that is perfectly fine. I wish I could outline like that. Like, work so hard on the outline that by the time you get to, like, the first draft stage, like, your first draft is so clean that it's, like, good enough to show somebody. Like, my first drafts are not that clean. They are not, like, there are so many little tidbits of me being like, add more emotion here. Like, there's something needs to happen in the scene. I don't know what it is. I'll come back to this. Or, like, instead of, like, outlining, like, a fight scene, I'll just put fight scene in brackets. Or, like, sex scene in brackets. I'm like, yeah, I'll do this later. I don't feel like it right now. Some lore about me. I hate writing fight scenes. I hate it. I don't like reading fight scenes either. So I try to make my fight scenes either vague or real short. So I have no easy answer for what I am as far as, like, outliner or discovery writer. I'm kind of both. Like, I'm somewhere in the middle, and it really just depends on the book. Like, the book, what it calls for, what it demands, how my muse is feeling at that time. Like, am I in that weird mindset zone where I can just poop out a first draft without having, like, a outline for it? Or is it one of those, like, where, like, I need to know exactly what's happening and, like, outline, like, do the whole save the cat outline thing. I have also written a first draft and then wrote the outline. Just so I'm like, okay, this doesn't, let me make sure all these story beats kind of fit within, like, the established structure that I'm going for. Because sometimes it's like, okay, this kind of happens too soon. Let's move this after the midpoint. Then I have to ask myself, okay, what is the midpoint? Like, what's the natural midpoint in this book? Coming back to the Witch Queen series. Book one, I didn't really outline. I had a vague notion of where I was going. Book two, I kind of outlined, but I still had kind of this vague notion of, like, things I didn't really know. Like, I'll figure out what happens later. Book three, I outlined. Book four, I outlined. And then, if you haven't watched any of my vlogs, it was a quartet for a very long time. Book four was supposed to be the last book. Then I got into it and I revised it and I revised it and I revised it. And there was just so much I was trying to pack into the end that it didn't feel right. It felt rushed. There was, like, this whole emotional arc that was being shoved into, like, a few scenes. And, like, is there a book five? Does there need to be a book five? And spoiler alert, yes, there is going to be a book five. And I took, like, my outline for, like, the third act of what was going to be book four, and I plopped it into a new document, and I was like, okay, let's just very briefly outline book five. And then I outlined book five, and it came so naturally. I have never had an outline just come so easily to me, and I was just like, okay, that's divine intervention. That is a sign from God that there needs to be a book five. So that's how book five was born. And I think that is the most I've ever outlined before. So that way I knew exactly what was happening in book five, what characters needed to be where, what was happening, because I kind of have two things happening at once, like dual timeline, but you're only experiencing one of those timelines. The other one is happening kind of in the background, and I needed them to happen simultaneously. So I needed to, like, know, okay, these ships are going to be here. Can I get these characters to this city on horseback at the same time that those ships get here. So the ships are probably going to move a lot faster, so I need to arrange it so that they are arriving relatively the same time. One thing about being a fantasy author that I don't like is like I don't know how far you can travel on a horse in one day over certain terrain, so I make those scenes, any scenes where there is travel on horseback, as vague as possible. I don't know the difference between a canter and a gallop and a walk. I don't know. I don't know any of these terms. I've tried to look them up, and I just feel like they're unnecessary for the books that I'm writing. I don't know the names of horses. I don't know the difference between horses. They're all of them are horses in my books, or horses. I will occasionally have like a war horse that's just a bigger horse, but otherwise they're all horses. I could hear something. I'm pretty sure it was a bug outside, but I thought for a minute I had like started a YouTube video and it was like making sound at the same time that I'm speaking, and my last 20 minutes of speaking was completely borked. It's not. It's fine. There's just so much that goes on in writing a book that you don't think about it until you're there. Like, I did not plan on talking about horses during this vlog. This was supposed to be about outlining and pantsing. And here we are, I'm talking about horses. I don't know. I need to end this vlog before it goes on for too long. The point of this vlog was that there's no one right way to write a book. Every author does it differently. Every author learns to do it differently. Like, you outline or you discover as you need to, as the book calls for it, as it feels natural to you. Some people write incredibly messy first drafts and then they have to go in and deconstruct it and reconstruct it. That's fine. Some people are very meticulous outliners. That's also fine. I was trying to think of a really fun analogy and it's just, there wasn't. There was nothing that came to mind. And I'm going to take that as a sign that the vlog needs to be over. So I will see you in the next vlog. Thank you for joining me. If you like this awkward, disorganized content, feel free to subscribe so we can hang out. I try to do these weekly. Sometimes I don't. I think I did one vlog in June because June was just really busy and I was tired and I just never, my hair was up all the time because it was hot and I always looked not good enough to be on camera. So thank you for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.